Namaste, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of The Inward Way with your host, me, Jim Young. I'm so glad that we're here together again this week, and I hope that your week, this past week, has been one where you have found yourself well and extremely happy. You deserve no less. You know the drill by now. In this particular book, The Inward Way, our first book in the podcast series, I take posts that I've seen here and there and take them inward to see what comes out of my inner space about these posts. I want to reiterate that this is not about adhering to what I say they should mean. It's only to help provide for you a means for you to listen carefully to see if any of it resonates with you, and to help build your a refining voice for you to live by day in and day out. We're all on a continuum together in different places, so each is going to be in a different place, but we all are headed in the same direction. Just understand that. It is true. Okay, for the first post, a shaman was asked, "What is poison?" His response, "Anything beyond what we need is poison. It can be power, laziness, food, ambition, vanity, fear, anger, or whatever." I suspect that most of us think of poison as something that is ingested and can result in a major tragedy. This post takes us to an entirely different level, beyond the outer realm, the literal. Just imagine for a moment having only what you actually need, not what would also be nice to have, or stockpiled things you think you might run out of. The latter has been witnessed beyond limits with the storage shortage caused by hoarding of toilet tissue during the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, you want to be prepared for any eventuality. Oh, why not also for World War III, for invasion by the Iranians or the Russians, or by intergalactic aliens? I know these sound far-fetched, but so does emptying the stores of toilet tissue, especially when the need isn't based on one of the symptoms of this particular virus. Heck, I know of someone who purchased 12 packs of toilet tissue. Really? 12 packs of toilet tissue? Yes, really. Now you say, so what? Why not obtain more than we need? So what if we stock up at the expense of those who barely have enough? Well, because doing so shows lack of compassion, shows greed, immense fear, selfishness, a cold and steely heart. Is that really how we want to live? To feel? To act? Whatever happened to love, compassion, the kindness shown to all, starting with ourselves? Kindness is not about more, but being okay with having just enough to take care of yourself and those in your care. Beyond that, at the spiritual level, far less than loving kindness. The same poison can be said about having more power than is necessary to fulfill one's life's calling. An overblown ego that places one's vanity or self-importance above societal ethics. Unchecked anger spewed out onto unsuspecting ways that bully others into submission. Limitless ambition that trumps on the balanced ambition of a co-worker or a neighbor. All such overextensions, all of them, are but forms of poison. How can that be so? You may ask, such commands beyond actual need fester the soul. They poison it moment by moment. They stymie our loving kindness. They keep us mired in self-righteousness and buried in ego consciousness. Taken spiritually, however, such behavior is also a sure sign that we need to go inward for daily guidance, to be attendant to our resonance with the renderings of our inner voice, to use our infinite awareness to define our authentic identity, and then live true to only our authentic identity. With the spiritual journey comes the clearing of our former focus on ego consciousness, so we can more wholesomely live true to ourselves. Just sit with this juxtaposition for a bit. Let it speak to you. Allow yourself to resonate with the truth of it for you, and let all else cease to be an option for you. No more cross and bones, no more poison, not in any form whatsoever. The next post is attributed to none other than Albert Einstein. A human being is part of a whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons only nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Quite lovely, Mr. Einstein. Thank you. More and more, it's becoming clear that Einstein was far more than a brilliant scientist. His writings about spiritual aspects of life are no less profound and penetrating. Much like sages and poets, his writings might be better understood for their depth of meaning by viewing them as metaphors, viewing them symbolically. For example, when Einstein says that a human being is part of a whole called the universe, it means we are more than just a piece of something. We are the exact replica of all existence. We are all life, and thus are limited only by that spiritual essence of being, life itself, and not by figments of our ego consciousness, the delusion of consciousness so many of us adhere to. When Einstein says that humankind experiences itself as separate from all else, what he means by that is until we discern our real identity, our infinite essence of being, our identity in common, we will maintain a wall of separation between what we think we are and our spiritual reality. This decision keeps us seeking endlessly to find ourselves, yet utterly unable to do so, for our authentic identity is not found in our imagination or outside our innate inner voice. The wall of separation erroneously identifies us as a thing, a body, a role, the who we search endlessly to find. Finding the who of what we are is simple, even easy to find. Our ego consciousness drives us to find and label the who we are by looking outside ourselves, labeling every role we are currently playing as our identity. And so who we are comes to be a spouse, parent, doctor, dentist, child, sibling, teacher. On it goes, this deceit and deception, this lie, endlessly so, all simply as labels we apply incorrectly. And our so-called identity continues on this treadmill until we find ourselves feeling something like, I don't know who I am anymore. Well, of course you don't know who you are anymore, because your identity isn't some role you play, shifting from one to another all day. This internal game becomes a prison, locking us in a false identity that shakes our confidence, makes us feel as though we have no purpose or even know why we're here on the planet in the first place. Rather than take these signs as a bad thing, however, when you feel or see them appear, use them as guideposts to send you inward, where with frequent practice you will find your real identity. That is what you really are, the life of life. This may seem like a tiny shift in understanding, but it is a most important one. As a matter of fact, this shift in comprehension from the outer to the inner is the key that unlocks the door to your spiritual reality. Your identity is the essence of being, to what of which all life is made. Once you land on this authentic identity, you will discern that your innate, most natural makeup is one of compassion, peace, joy, loving kindness, patience, passion. Indeed, this is your authentic nature, and the nature of all life, all of us, hence its innate beauty. Having arrived there, you recognize that the only way you can see others this way is because you also are this very way. So set yourself from the prison of ego consciousness and join the real you, the what that is found only inward. Life itself, expressed beautifully, on and on and on. The next post. Expect nothing. Appreciate everything. Don't look for love. Be love. One of the most personally disturbing ways of dealing with life is by establishing expectations for others, especially when we aren't transparent with our expectations. Actually, setting expectations is a double-edged sword. On one edge, when we set expectations without making them public and then think others ought to meet them, such an act is to be deceitful with those around us. Just how far is it to treat another this way? The other edge of the sword is that by establishing expectations others can't meet, mainly because they don't even know what they are, we are setting ourselves up to be disappointed that someone didn't meet them. Just how ugly is this? This is bad personal policy and highly self-sabotaging. Pretty difficult to find peace and joy in either edge of setting expectations, that's for sure. People who set expectations also are generally unaware of what others do for them and for the world in general. So self-absorbed are they that they rarely appreciate loving kindness, except rarely. But let's turn this inward. Ask simply, in what ways do I expect things of myself that are unreasonable, unclear, even out of touch with human acuity and diligence? Ask as well, when I feel disappointed in another or myself, what am I really calling for? What is it that will satisfy my need for comfort and joy? The last of the prompts on this post deals with love. It admonishes not to look for love, but to be love we already are. To know our innate essence of being and express it through all we do. As a matter of fact, it's a sure bet that looking for love elsewhere is a clear signal that we are not loving ourselves and are not seeing ourselves as love itself, perhaps even failing to love those around us and ourselves. This is not unlike saying we are looking for peace. No. Be the peace you want to see. And for love, we need to be the love we seek. Thus, do you want love in your life? Be the love you already are. Once you've arrived at love, you'll find it all around you in myriad forms, just waiting for you to show up and be aware of it. Try it. You'll love it. The next post. Saw a quote that said, "Speak to people in a way that if they died the next day, you'd be satisfied with the last thing you said to them." And I can't emphasize this enough. It's amazing how few people tell others that they love them. Perhaps they weren't told or shown love as they grew up, so don't know what real love really is, let alone how to tell someone that they love them. My own parents were the kind that showed you they loved you, but rarely, if ever, told you they did. Their showing did it for them. I never doubted that they did love me, because each conveyed their love for me in very simple, easily understandable ways, many of them. It wasn't until I got married and started to have a family of my own that I began telling my mother and father that I loved them. I made it a point to do so wherever we gathered together or when I was about to finish a phone call with them. The message of this post reminds me of the importance of conveying what you feel about someone clearly, directly, compassionately. I'm not speaking here of just blurting out feelings in ways that are hurtful to others. I'm talking about simply telling people when they look extra nice, when you're pleased that they care about you, and thanking them for even the simplest gesture of love and kindness. Years ago, when finishing up a telephone conversation with my father, the best man I've ever met, I told him I loved him as he hung up. But I had the distinct feeling that he hadn't heard me say that because he didn't respond, or at least I didn't think he responded in any way that I heard. A couple of months later, my dad died unexpectedly, and part of my grieving process served up to me the fear that he hadn't heard me tell him that I loved him on that last phone call. I nursed that pain and my own failure to be sure he had heard me for quite some time. By going inward, I came to know the source of my pain. It dealt with the fear that I hadn't fulfilled my promise to him and the guilt that led to. Actually, on an even deeper level, just to be sure that I was walking my talk, I listened even more intently and discerned that I had been failing to show love for myself clearly, more dependably. A few years later, while speaking with a friend who also was a well-developed psychic, I mentioned my lament about that occurrence with my father. Almost before I had finished my explanation, my friend said to me, "Jim, stop. There is no doubt that he heard you. It's just that he was placing the phone back into the holder and returned 'I love you too, Jim,' but to himself." He was so clear, my friend, in his explanation of this affirmation that it resonated as truth for me. And finally, after all those years, I was able to give up my feelings of guilt. This was a valuable lesson for me to learn. To be sure I say what I mean and mean what I say in a way that another is uplifted by it, most assuredly so. Not so they will think well of me, but so they will understand something about themselves they might not otherwise have even occurred to them. That they are deeply appreciated and celebrated in love. I as well can't emphasize this enough to you. I don't recall how a new practice of mine began, only that for whatever reason I had at the time, I purchased 100 tiny, shiny silver angel wings. I had even forgotten that I had purchased them until one day they showed up in my mailbox. I didn't invest any time in deciding what I might do with them. I simply listened inwardly and opened a pack of 10 and put them in my pocket before going on my daily walk. As it is, I always say hello to people I meet on the way in my walk. But that day, as I approached a woman walking her dog, I bid her good morning and then said to her dog, "And to you as well, little puppy." Then, seeming out of nowhere, I reached into my pocket for one of the angel wings, and out of my mouth came, "Your dog wants me to tell you how it feels about you," and I put the angel in her hand. "Oh, that's so sweet," she responded, with a smile across her whole face with eyes gleaming. That was the beginning of it. Since then, I've given somewhere around 300 of those little treasures of angels to people, saying whatever I was moved to say in the moment. And in every instance but one, including with children and men, the response has been one of surprise, a sort of, "Who, me?" kind of response, which I then affirmed for them that they were, in fact, angels, as we all are for one another. When a few have declined that they could be an angel, I've been sure to ask if they've forgotten. Forgotten what, they always ask. "Forgotten you're an angel," I respond. And then quickly, "Do you know what happens when you forget you're an angel?" I usually get a shake of the head, "No." "Well, if you forget you're an angel, you behave as though you're not." Along the way, a few have called me an angel for reminding them of being one this way. It's nice to be validated, yet I knew I was an angel before I began this process. Just making the decision to obtain the angels let me know that there was some inner reference I had been ignoring about myself. When that light went on inwardly, I made the decision to gift others with the same affirmation. All the way to this, all because of feeling my dad didn't hear me tell him I loved him. I'm so glad I'm on this journey called loving kindness. P.S. Recently, since the advent of the coronavirus, people have become reluctant even to say hello, let alone accept an angel from a stranger with white hair. Now, that would be me. Nevertheless, I still bid everyone a good morning and simply go on my way. Just today, though, whenever people approach on my walk, I dance off the sidewalk into the road, giving them at least 6 feet clearance. The fun part began when I started to announce fictitious distances between us as they passed. The one that got the biggest laugh was when I announced that we were 7 feet, 36 inches apart. Perhaps I should add a tango step to that routine. Being the angel that I am, I'll bet I can find the appropriate step. You are that too. Don't think you're not, because you certainly are an angel waiting to show up in somebody's life and be that exactly for them. Next post. On particularly rough days, I like to remind myself that my track record for getting through bad days so far is 100%. And that's pretty doggone good. It's easy to get caught up in woe is me when we're having a tough day, especially when we're blindsided by a friend or lover who has dumped us. That's a particularly difficult one to deal with. And there are scores of other happenings that catch us up short along this journey called life. Every one of them, large or small, has the capacity to knock us for a loop. But such a summary is not actually true. It's only true in the world of ego consciousness. Someone did something unjust to me, made me a victim. Someone died, left me to myself. No! The fact of the matter is that it is we who make decisions on how to respond to life. It is we who give all meaning to life. It is we who give thought to it, and from thought comes feelings. And sometimes when we're not discerning what really happens around us, we set ourselves up to have a tough day. What is that, do you think? Could it be we do it because... Why is that, do you think? Excuse my tongue got caught in my eye tooth and I couldn't see what I was reading for a minute. Why is that, do you think? Could it be that we do it because we're very vulnerable in the moment? Could it be that we have low self-worth quotient? Could it be that we are fulfilling a pattern of self-sabotage with a particular kind of person? It could be any of these, or not at all. In any event, what another does or says is simply that, an action or words. They may mean something particular by either, but that doesn't mean we have to take it that way. Think of it this way. Just because someone gives us a cactus doesn't mean we have to sit on it. Ouch. And we certainly don't need to take any of it personally. The world doesn't revolve around us. And besides, it's none of our business what anyone else thinks about us or how we behave. That's ours alone to be aware of and to act accordingly. So, if we feel someone has sucker punched us according to our ego-conscious vision, that's a perfect signpost to send us inward to ask what is really going on. Did we put ourselves in that position? How do I sucker punch myself? What is it about my relationship with my inner self that feels like a sucker punch? My sense is that you may well have some pertinent questions than these, more pertinent questions than these. The key is not to consider mine, but to consider the renderings of your own inner voice. Use your own awareness to take you down the road to heal whatever it is you think is disturbing you, but which, truthfully, is merely giving you a signal to fathom this for yourself and to leave the ways of ego consciousness far behind. Even if you haven't practiced going inward for the wisdom that awaits you, I'm confident that along the journey you've come to satisfactory solutions to seemingly unhappy events or circumstances. That tally alone should convince you that you are sure to get over whatever it is that seemingly knocks you off your pins. And all that's to the good. at least for living a life governed by ego consciousness. However, you know what's coming, don't you? Should you want to go deeper within, so you can have a life rich in spiritual guidance and manifestation, let your ego response serve as a signpost that directs you inward. That way the ego can be a friend rather than a burden that offends all too often. All that's required in practicing being aware of how you resonate with certain aspects of life. And whenever you become aware of something that feels disorienting, take that as a gift. Take it as a sign that you are stuck on some level of being that is looking to be released spiritually. Then simply go inward and start your inquiry, listening for the answer that is sure to come, and is sure to be a correct answer for you to follow. This may seem difficult at first, even to remember to do it. Make yourself a note on a sticky and place it somewhere prominent on your daily life. Use that to direct you inwardly. The more you practice, believe me, the better you'll get with doing it. The better you'll get with going within, the more you rely on the truth of your inner wisdom found there. And the more grateful you'll be that you did. You won't worry about your track record anymore. Neither will you live in fear of repeating yourself in untoward ways. Okay, one more, and then we'll wrap up this third episode of The Inward Way. The last post is, nobody makes you angry. You decide to use anger as a response. Whoa. Okay, let me read that one again. Nobody makes you angry. You decide to use anger as a response. You made me angry. That makes me sad. That hurt me when you said that. Is anything sounding familiar yet? When out with friends a while ago, I joked with the person who was clearing our plates, and one of the friends put her head down at the table and said, "That embarrassed me." I immediately responded, "No, I didn't embarrass you. You're choosing to be embarrassed." A brief discussion followed, the three of us, which led to a clear understanding that we all choose how we respond or react in every situation in our lives. It's we who give all of it meaning, the meaning we choose to give it, to all of life. No one is doing it to us. We are not victims. So, how we're feeling about any situation or circumstance is of our own making. We choose whatever meaning we want to give it. All too often, many of us sink into the role of victim. That it's always someone else who made us feel a certain way with something they said or did. Oh, woe is me. It's time to give that one up and take responsibility for one's own characterizations. Otherwise, we'll never grow up or mature, emotionally or spiritually. Here again, all it takes is staying aware of how we're looking at life, how we think life is treating us, what thoughts we have about it. Even in this sentence, it's not that life is treating us in any particular fashion at all. The real thing to look at is what experience we are giving to life. How are we choosing to experience, to think about what's showing up moment by moment? Then we must own it, and I mean own it. We must take responsibility for seeing it the way we did, and then shift the meaning we've given to it so we can accommodate the whisperings of our inner voice, so we can stand tall in our truth of being. And by the way, it's the same way in our conversations and dealings with every person we deal with in this lifetime. Choose wisely, my dear friend. Choose wisely. Okay, that wraps it up for episode 3 of The Inward Way for this week. I hope that you'll, this next week, consider some of the things you may have resonated with by hearing this, or if in fact you're going to the website www.theinwardway.live and ordering a copy of the book so you can follow through on this yourself. Whatever you're getting from it, I hope that you are surely not only able, I know that's true, that you're able to discern the difference between living from ego consciousness and living from spiritual consciousness. Go inward, my friends. Go inwards. That's the only real way. I'll leave you with this little thing that I found the other day. We don't create abundance. Abundance is always present. We create limitations. Let me read that again. We don't create abundance. Abundance is always present. We create limitations. So until next week, my dear friends, have a lovely week. Be all you are and enjoy every moment of it. Namaste. I love you.